Hello, welcome to this tutorial on how to calculate chi-square test using MS Excel. For this tutorial, we will use the data from the paper by Santarius T. et al. Use of drain versus no drain after borehole evacuation of chronic subdural hematoma, a randomized controlled trial published in Lancet in 2009. Here you are seeing a 2 by 2 contingency table. On the rows, you see the category drain and no drain, and on the columns, no recurrence of chronic subdural, recurrence of chronic subdural. Here are the totals. This total is from adding the 98 and 10, that gives you 108. This total is adding 81 and 26, 107, that represents patients who had no drain. And the total here is 179 of all the patients who did not have recurrence, 36 who did have recurrence, and 215 the total patients. Basically, in chi-square test, you are ascertaining whether the proportions are the same in the two groups or not. So to calculate the chi-square test, based on the actual data, you have to calculate the expected data. And so here I have duplicated the table, the top table here, and removed the data but left the totals. So now we have to calculate what are the expected values if the proportions were the same. So let's go to the next slide. So let's calculate the expected no recurrence of chronic subdural when there were to have been no drain. So that's this cell. So how do we calculate the expected value? So we know that the total number of no recurrence was 179, but the total number of cases were 215. But the number of no drain was 107. So the ratio of no recurrence of chronic subdural to total is 179 to 215. Same ratio has to apply in this between this cell and this cell if for the expected date value. So how do we calculate it? So we first of all divide 179 by 215 and then multiply by 107. That will give you the expected proportion. So we do the same calculation, equivalent calculation in each cell. So here the expected value will be 179 divided by 215. That proportion of 108 would be the number of no recurrences with drain. And here once again we look at the proportion 36 over 215, and that proportion of 107 will give you the expected value here. And here once again the 36 over 215 will give you the proportion, and that proportion of 108 will give you the expected value in this cell. So now let's go to Excel. In the top part I have put the actual data: drain, no recurrence, recurrence, total, total. So this is duplication of the table from the previous slides. And here I'm going to calculate the expected value. So once again, let's start here. So let's go to the formula bar, equal. We said we want to know the proportion of 179 to 215, then multiplied by 107, and we want to do the same thing here. So 179 divided by 215 multiplied this time by 108, and here 36 divided by 215 multiplied by 107. I better put an equal sign, I suppose. Okay. And here 36 divided by 215 multiplied by 108. So again, let's put the equal sign. So now we have calculated the expected values, and now we can do our chi-square test to see what's the p-value that our findings, the probability of our findings are based on chance. And we will say that if the probability is less than 0.05, then the difference is statistically significant, and if it is greater than 0.05, the difference is not statistically significant, confirming the null hypothesis. There's no difference between the proportions between the two groups. So let's say p-value, and in this cell we are going to calculate do the chi-test. So let's put equal, and when I press the function builder, I get the chi-square test. So I first of all, if you see here, it says it wants the actual range. So I highlight these 4 cells for the actual range, and then the expected range for that. I just move my cursor to the expected range and then highlight these 4 cells, the values that we calculate. So here we can see the actual range was B5 to C6, and the expected range, the 4 cells B11 to C12. So that's done, and when we press the correct sign, we will now get our p-value, which is 0.0031. So that's our probability that the difference between the two groups are by chance. The proportions of recurrence and not recurrence in the no drain and drain groups are by chance is 3 out of 1000, or 0.003. That's much less than 0.05. So we say that the difference we see in proportion between the two groups, the group where there was no drain and the group where there was drain, the recurrence rate, the difference in recurrence rate between these two groups are statistically significant. So I hope this tutorial has been useful in demonstrating to you how to calculate chi-square test using MS Excel. Thank you very much, and wishing you a good day.